What's good, YouTube? It's your boy, Blue Blood Sports TV, back at y'all with another one. So, Terence Bud Crawford's trainer, Brian McIntyre, says that, takes to an interview and says that Errol Spence is not the toughest challenge at the welterweight division. He states that and cites that Keith Thurman, in fact, is the toughest challenge at the welterweight division, seeing as though Keith Thurman has the movement and the power to give Terence Bud Crawford the trouble. He was asked about the size of Errol Spence. Bomac cited Jose Benavidez' size, although I don't believe that Jose Benavidez comes close to is Errol Spence equal or anything of the sort. But he cited Jose Benavidez' size. He says that Jose Benavidez was big, and he's bigger than Errol Spence. And his punches couldn't move Terence Bud Crawford. I do think that Jose Benavidez was giving Terence Crawford a little bit of trouble in the beginning of that fight. Terence Crawford eventually figured it out, and the size was the reasoning for the trouble, I believe, because the long jab, the size, you know, he was having trouble getting around it. But Bomac cited that size won't be a problem. He says that Jose Benavidez was bigger than Errol Spence. He also states that if Keith Thurman injuries is the reason that he's not recognized as the #1 welterweight in the world, he's kind of forgotten about, out of sight, out of mind. He says that Keith Thurman has the movement and he has the power, so he would be his toughest task at the welterweight division. He doesn't even look at Errol Spence or any of these other guys as the champion. He said he looks at Keith Thurman still as the champion. He never lost his titles in the ring. He had to vacate one of his titles due to injury and inactivity. So he still cites Keith Thurman as the #1 welterweight in the division. He says that immediately after this fight with Amir Khan, should Terence Crawford be victorious, that he's looking to face either Shawn Porter, Errol Spence, or Keith Thurman. He says, but he doubts any of those fights happen in 2019 by the end of the year. He says because none of these fighters want to fight Terence Crawford. They see what Terence Crawford does. Terence Crawford ends careers. Careers are not the same after guys fight Terence Crawford. My one issue with that is that if it doesn't happen by the end of the year, who would Terence Crawford possibly fight? If he doesn't have a unification bout versus Shawn Porter, Keith Thurman, or Errol Spence, then who would he possibly fight by the end of the year, right? There's not enough fighters for Terence Crawford to fight. There's no more Amir Khans in the world, right? We see Shawn Porter is going to face Ugas. I said Usyk. I meant Ugas. March 9th in Las Vegas. Then we're going to get Errol Spence versus Mikey Garcia, March 16th in Texas. And then we know we got Keith Thurman coming up in 2 weeks, January 26th. I'm pretty sure Keith Thurman is not going to be an opponent for Terence Crawford, because Keith Thurman is probably going to have another tune-up fight, should he, depending upon how he looks and how he feels in this fight against Josito Lopez. But I'm pretty sure, I'm almost certain Keith Thurman is going to have another tune-up fight before he goes into another major fight. And as he already cited, Keith Thurman is going to be looking at fighting Shawn Porter to retrieve his WBC title back. And Keith Thurman already stated this. He's going to be the mandatory for Shawn Porter as well. So should Shawn Porter get past Ugas, I'm pretty sure we're going to see either another tune-up fight for Keith Thurman, or we're going to see Shawn Porter versus Keith Thurman too. With that said, that would leave Errol Spence. And I'm pretty sure Errol Spence should be available at this point in time to face Terence Crawford. So hopefully we could get Terence Crawford versus Errol Spence in a unification bout, because I'm pretty sure we're not going to see Keith Thurman and Shawn Porter, as I already stated. Keith Thurman, before he fights any of the other champions, is going to be looking to fight Shawn Porter, retrieve his WBC title that he lost. He had to vacate due to injury and inactivity. With that said, Shawn Porter and Keith Thurman is his mandatory. So Errol Spence gets past Mikey Garcia. Where does that leave Errol Spence? Right? So that would leave Errol Spence without an opponent, because he won't be able to unify with Keith Thurman or Shawn Porter. So that would leave Terence Crawford. So it would only make sense that we get Errol Spence versus Terence Crawford I would say by the summer or the fall of 2019. And then later on, we can work on an undisputed if they don't have a rematch, right? I'm pretty sure they'll have a rematch close because they're both champions. So I'm pretty sure we'll probably get a rematch depending upon how that fight plays out. But I'm almost certain that we'll have a rematch with that fight. And if they don't go back into immediate rematch, maybe we could get another unification bout. By that time, Keith Thurman and Sean Porter should have fought, and there should be some conclusion to that chapter. So, you know, I agree with Bomac. I always said this. I'll stick to my guns. I always said that I felt like Keith Thurman was the toughest fight for Terence Crawford at the welterweight division because of his movement, his boxing ability, and his power. This is no knock against Errol Spence. I still think Errol Spence is a hell of a champion. You know me, you go back to my videos, I always favorite Keith Thurman to beat Errol Spence due to the movement, right? You have to have certain qualities to beat Errol Spence, and I think that Terence Crawford and Keith Thurman possess those qualities to beat Errol Spence. I think that Mikey Garcia possessed some of the qualities that they possess to beat Errol Spence, but he doesn't have all of the qualities. He needs to be bigger, stronger, and faster. He's not. He has a ring IQ. He has good boxing ability. That won't be enough versus Errol Spence. It's barely going to be enough for Keith Thurman and Terence Crawford. And I don't know how Keith Thurman is going to come back, being off almost a 2-year layoff. March would be a 2-year layoff for Keith Thurman. Although he's going to come back in January, so he'll just be beating it by 2 months. 2 months shy of being out the ring for 2 years. So I don't even know how Keith Thurman is going to come back. But as far as Terence Crawford, I always say this, and I've been saying this. I favor Terence Crawford because he has the ability to make adjustments. He has the boxing ability. He has the speed. He has enough power to keep Errol Spence honest and keep Errol Spence off him. He has just enough movement for where his power doesn't kick in. He can move and make adjustments to get out of the way. That's what you need to beat Errol Spence, because Errol Spence is bringing his hard hat and his lunch pail, and it could get ugly. You know what I mean? But I always said that Keith Thurman would be the toughest task for Terence Crawford to figure out. I could never really see how that fight plays out and how the conclusion of that fight will look. I played out Errol Spence versus Terence Crawford. I played out Keith Thurman versus Errol Spence. You know, his movement. You know, when you give him, he has trouble when you give him movement, and he goes into a shell when you return fire. He doesn't really trade in between punches. You know, so you know, when Keith Thurman or Terence Crawford let their hands go, I think that they could win on points. You know, I don't think either of them can knock him out, but he could definitely knock them out. You know, so it's an interesting fight. It's a 50-50 fight. Errol Spence versus Keith Thurman. Errol Spence versus Terence Crawford. But that's all I got for y'all. It's your boy Blue Blood Sports TV. Hate, like, comment, and subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the bell icon to get all the new notification. Follow me on Instagram at Blue Blood Sports TV, all one word. Y'all already know what it is. Shouts out to the entire LDBC. Shouts out to New Media. Shouts out to Black Media Raw. Make sure you like and share these videos. Do you agree with Bomac that Keith Thurman is Errol Spence's toughest task? Let me know. Drop a comment in the comment section. That's all I got for y'all. Peace.